Hey guys, welcome to an exciting episode of the Daily Show. Today we're going to be interviewing Richard Das Neves. Now, he has recently moved over from Easterns after a very successful time at Easterns. He's now moved to the Northerns or the Titans franchise as the high performance manager. Now, that is an excellent role for the future of SA cricket and the future of Northern's talent. Now, we know that Northerns is well known for the likes of AB de Villiers and the guys like Faf du Plessis and Lungi and Gedi and so many amazing talents that have come through the Titans system and the Titans brand. And more recently, Dayan Khalid has moved over and made a success for himself over there too. So a lot of excellent talent coming through the Northern system. So to have someone like Richard Das Neves at the helm, helping that development and also helping in other aspects of the game with talent identification and coaching itself, it's awesome to have a brain like his on the panel, on the coaching staff, in the setup to help grow and really motivate the guys that are in that setup to reach new heights. And it's very difficult to think about that when the Northerns have been one of the most successful provinces and Titans have been one of the most successful franchises in the last couple of years. So to add this type of quality to the setup is so important. So we're going to be talking to Richard about this. Not only does he speak about men's cricket, but he also speaks about women's cricket and the developments that he's going to be implementing over there and the strategies he's going to be implementing over there in the Northern's women's setup. Northern's women are also one of the top talented provinces when it comes to women's cricket in South Africa. So it's really exciting that we're going to be chatting to him and finding a little bit more information on this. So as you guys know, this whole theme is around the latest issue of the magazine, which is on coaching in South Africa. Now, Richard will be giving some insight into that as well. So if you guys want to download the latest issue of the magazine, it's 100% free. So go ahead and download that. You can click the eye on the screen, do that, or the link in the description. Let's get straight into today's episode. So, as I said, we're going to be welcoming Richard Das Neves on the show, and it's going to be so interesting to talk to him because we're going to remain in the theme of the magazine. Now, as you know, that the magazine issue is all about coaching in South African cricket. Now, Richard, you are one of the best coaches in South Africa, and I know you currently have a role that's maybe a little bit different right now at Northerns, being high performance in high performance management, etc. It's a role that I'm only very familiar with when it comes to Cricket South Africa itself as an organization. High performance management at that level. I'm not very familiar with it at provincial level or at franchise level. So can you first and foremost just give me some insight into what's happened since the last time we spoke? Because obviously going from Easterns, successful there. I mean, excellent over there with the teams that you've built and the mentality you created in that dressing room, and now you're going to one of the best franchises in the country and you have a role like this. So can you just give us some insight into it and explain it to us a little bit so that we can get this conversation going?
Cool, thanks, Khalid, and thanks for having me on the show. So obviously finished with Easterns in around about June this year after 4 years there. I think with the restructure happening, it was just a bit of a change of scenery was needed. So I took up the sort of high performance role at the Titans, and then sort of looking a little bit within the main side as sort of consulting in particular with the batting side of things with the main team. So the high performance role is really trying to look at things from sort of top to bottom, trying to get a little bit more of the structures going within the union, and with the restructure happening with Cricket South Africa. Northern's obviously thought it would be a good time to look at a certain role to fulfill those sort of gaps in the pipeline, and as well as to maybe assist a little bit with the women's team. So my role is quite diverse within the union. At the moment, I've mainly in my first sort of six weeks or so that I've been there, I've mainly worked with the main men's team, the Titans men's team, in prep for the new season. But over the next few weeks and months, there'll be more work happening within the pipeline, as well as with the ladies team as well. So it really, as I mentioned, it's quite a diverse role, and just looking at the entire structure as a whole within the union, and assisting wherever needed.
So when it comes to the the role of a high performance manager, etc. So you mentioned there that you're also working with the team itself from a coaching capacity as well. So when you walk into a dressing room, and obviously there are so many stars around, and I want to know about what it's like to be a coach in South Africa is what I want to get to. And let's start with that, because now you've done different levels, you've coached at different levels, from university right up now into professional levels. And also, you in your playing career, you dealt with coaches as well. So I want to know a little bit more about the South African setup, what it is like to be a coach in South Africa, and what are some of the challenges that you face, and what are some of the things that you face that you know is positive going forward when it comes to coaching in South Africa.
So yeah, in my current role now at the Titans, I think some of the challenges would really be with guys pushing up to the next level. So trying to get up into the national team. So we've obviously fortunate enough to have quite a few national players in our mix. So working with those guys, as well as working with the current crop of players within the Titans setup to sort of upskill them to get to international level, would be obviously the next step. I mean, my previous gig at Easton's, obviously the last 4 years, have been to try and get the guys to step up from senior provincial level up to franchise level. So there's always the challenges there of working up and working down. So trying to manage that, and then when players are moving up, who are the next guys coming in through your pipeline? Obviously in previous structure, if we use the Titans as an example, they had Northerns and Easterns to feed from. Now it's really just your own region. So now it's just, in my role now, it's really just looking after Northerns and the region itself. So the sort of pipeline has sort of shrunk, if for lack of a better word, has sort of, you don't have as many players to pick from now in terms of your main franchise team. So it's streamlined. Let's use that word. It's streamlined a little bit better. So now you have to really be on top of your game to know from the schools feeding your system, from the clubs, etc., who exactly are your next best players coming in. So I think that's always a challenge that faces you as a coach in the domestic game, and trying to just look ahead, because we don't know with COVID as well how big squads are going to be at international level. How bubbles, obviously players are away for longer periods, so you need to try and plan as best as possible for every scenario that you could face during the season, and make sure that those players are ready to perform. So that's really a big part of my role at the moment, is that Mantla and Jeff have to concentrate on the main side itself, and make sure that they're performing. But I've got to try and foresee certain gaps in the system down the line, and make sure that players are ready to step into those gaps if and when required.
How's it, Richard?
How's it?
My question to you is, how much coordination is there between your role at the Northerns and what Makwaja and Tinaga, or perhaps Makwaja and Temba Bavuma, are looking to do at the national team?
I don't think I can answer that question just yet. I've only just really started in the role within a few weeks. Obviously, we try to get figure out our own structure. To be honest, there hasn't been much communication up top in terms of how they're doing it. I guess a nice thing is that Mantla has been a part of the national setup on previous tour. So there is a little bit of feedback coming from there in terms of the structures, but ultimately I would think that each union needs to sort of get on board and fulfill their structure within the bigger picture of South African cricket. So that's ultimately what our roles are and what our jobs are, is to produce good international cricketers, guys that are ready to perform at international level, because that puts food on the table for us. So that's the big thing for us, I think.
Now, talent identification is obviously going to be one of your main roles at Northerns as well. And obviously you spoke about it, saying that now your region has actually shrunk a little bit. So when I'm talking about this, I'm specifically thinking about a particular player we've had on the channel before, and that's Deva Brevis. And I want to ask you about when it comes to seeing a talent like him, and then maybe other guys don't have that natural ability maybe as others. You have those guys like in the national side, like Dean Alger, who constantly speaks about it. He says he's not maybe as talented as the likes of like AB was and so many other players, but that you can see their qualities and they fight within them. I want to ask you about talent identification. When you're dealing with a guy like Deval Brevis or someone maybe that is maybe not as talented as him, to find the next generation of talent to take the Titans forward, because I think that's how the Titans are going to be successful. Any team in South Africa is going to be successful is making sure that the pipeline is very good. What do you do when you identify talent? What is the key things you look for in a young player?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think, and a good sort of analogy between somebody like Dilbert Brevis, who's a highly talented individual, young player coming through, who's blessed with some really natural talent. And I've seen him now the last few weeks. He's been at a few of our trainings in and around his matric studies, but his ball striking ability is phenomenal. So he's really exciting. I think the biggest thing to look for in terms of talent identification is trying to see something within a player that can develop down the line. Trying to sort of foresee. You can see get a picture in your mind as a coach as to the player that you think this guy could become or girl could become, and then plotting out the plan as to how to get there. So there's certain things. I mean, it can be technical, it can be tactical, it can be a character of a player that really just stands out, that you see, okay, this guy really wants it, and he's got enough going for him to get to the final sort of picture that you see in your head down the line. And as you mentioned, everyone develops at different stages in there. There's late bloomers who come to the party at a later stage as well. So it's really about trying to figure out or foresee something that stands out in a player that you can nurture, and then work on the rest of the things that he doesn't quite have at the time. So, for example, like a Deelwald, he's never played franchise, he's never played first class cricket. So there's going to be challenges ahead that he now needs to figure out, and we can already foresee certain challenges that are going to come his way. But with his God-given talent that he's got, we got to try and map that out so that he's as successful as possible, as quick as possible. And we talk about certain players having like a cricket ID. So somebody like Quinny de Kock, at 16 years old, his cricket ID was already sort of 22, 23. His development was just so far ahead of the rest. And then there might be other guys who are a little bit behind, or their ID is exactly what their actual ID is, but it's about that development over the coming years, and working on specific things to get them to that stage. But yeah, Brevis is a superb talent, and looking forward to helping him over the next few months and years develop into something special.
Richard, over the last couple of years, there have been these questions about what the right structure is, for domestic cricket and for high performance centers, particularly in England and Australia, because of the struggles that they've had in sort of supplying players to the national team, whereas India seems to have got that formula right, with their India A program and an under-19 program. And I was wondering if you'd been following some of those developments, and if you see any lessons for South African cricket there.
Yeah, so I have followed it a little bit and have a fair idea about how they sort of go about things in India. I think our key, and there has been a bit of talk about it this season, that the SAA and the SA merging side are going to play a little bit more cricket. They're even in season. I think generally our program has only really allowed for off season where those teams get selected and get a few games in. But there's quite a bit of talk that in season there might be a few tours or game time for those guys. I think the quicker that we can step up the level of play, the better. So if SAA is a step up from franchise cricket, which it should be, then the more our next generation or next players are playing at that level, surely the better they're going to get, and the more exposure they're going to get. So I think it's really about just creating opportunities in and around that. I think obviously India are fortunate with their location. They can do more things. We're a little bit stuck on the bottom side of the world, so it's not always that easy to get game time against necessarily quality opposition. But yeah, I think there are plans in place to try and make that happen. And I think just those guys being being in that environment where they are challenged a little bit more at a higher level will surely only bode them good in the future. As well as those guys, we will know exactly who our next best players are. Sometimes it's like you can pick 1 out of 5. It's really just any one of those 5. We're not quite sure who's actually the best next opening batter, etc., because in the franchise system, they're guys that are doing well, and it's really and on the same sort of circuit. But in a team environment, maybe at an SAA level, that becomes a little bit easier then to identify who are the guys that are really performing well and are the next in. So the more, I think it just comes down to more game time, more availability. I think that's something that the under-19 setup has been trying to do, but again, there's challenges there with school and matric and all those kind of things. And now COVID has thrown another curveball at us that we have to deal with as well. So, but I do think that we on the right track in terms of structure and the changes that are being made within Cricket South Africa structures. I think we're heading in a better direction.
The last couple of years, there's also been a renewed emphasis on fitness because players are trying to play 3 formats of the game. And I was wondering if the South African school system, which generally requires students to play at least 2 sports, helps you achieve the fitness parameters that players need to achieve to play 3 formats.
Yeah, I think so. My understanding, especially of the if we want to call it the more traditional schools, they cover quite a bit of that, and a lot of the traditional schools make I want to say force, but they encourage the players to play other sports. So in the winter when cricket's not really happening, the guys are playing rugby or playing hockey or soccer or whatever it might be, and I think that's quite important for skill development as well. That guys do play other sports because it works on different muscles, different growth patterns, different skills. So your good cricketers who play rugby are guys who are good under the high ball, and vice versa. They're able to sidestep it. It makes it actually assists the sport that they may well take up one day. So I think specializing in a specific sport too early can also be detrimental down the line. I'm quite a big fan of veering into a few other avenues. It helps in terms of your development. Bearing in mind, obviously, maybe you're more skillful at a specific sport that might push you in a direction where you could become a professional in that sport one day. But I think our school system does allow for that. But again, COVID has probably thrown a little bit of curveballs around that there hasn't been a hell of a lot of school sport over the last couple of years, which is also not ideal in terms of talent identification, opportunity, etc. But yeah, in general, in a perfect world, I think we're okay in that department.
Now, I would like to ask you a question about players and their roles in teams. Now, South Africa is looking to my understanding of the national team is like we're looking for that finisher, that number 6 position. There are a lot of players that maybe have to play out of position, etc. At what point do you give that advice to a player to tell them, look here, maybe you could be an opener, or maybe you should be an all-rounder, or maybe you should be specialized as a number 6 or a finisher, etc. And switching. You've heard a lot about, normally in franchise cricket is where people find what their true calling is, and know so they know where their position is and where they fit into the system. At what point do you know that, or is it that all done in the recruitment when you recruit your new players?
Yeah, so I think my sort of opinion on that is that sometimes we specialize a little bit too early at schoolboy level, that we sort of box players into certain roles, that this is the opening batter, this is the opening bowler, this is the spin bowler, this is the middle order batter. And we sort of stick to that for 2, 3, 4 years, in particularly in the higher age groups or the higher teams, your under 14As, under 15As. The opening batter in the under 14A only opens the batting throughout his whole school career. And yes, he may be good at that, and cool, that might end up being his skill. But I think being flexible within that environment is also important, because having that guy in a couple of games maybe bat at 6 might just open up a different part of his game that develops over that period of time. Yes, maybe if you've got 10 games in the season, 8 out of 10 he can open the batting, but in 2 of the games maybe you can try him a little bit lower and see what develops from that, because that's going to ultimately help him with his skill. Maybe it helps him hit the ball out the ground, for example, and then he thinks, well, opening the batting, this I could actually hit over the top quite comfortably now, instead of just caressing it through the covers as I have done my whole life. So and it also might develop secondary skills, because now when he opens the batting, he might be a decent off spinner, but we don't use him as an off spinner because we've got another spinner in the team and he's already opening the batting, so he's doing his job. We've got to give the other guy a chance. But now maybe in the games that he bats at 6, he can be the frontline spinner, because the frontline spinner is getting a chance to bat at 3. And then maybe that develops his secondary skill into something which I think we're seeing in the national team at the moment. We're crying out for somebody who could do a little bit of a bowling role in that top 4, top 5, which will help balance our team out a little bit better, and maybe give an opportunity for another finisher to come into the lineup. If we've got somebody who could do a secondary skill, like a JP Duminy, for example, or as we all know, a Jacques Callis, who was gun at everything. So if we could. And if we don't specialize too early as youngsters, and we actually allow that opportunity, that might help with the development of talent identification, or the specializing, or getting into something like that. I mean, I even look at myself. When I played under 14, I used to open the bowling and bat 3. But I saw in the A side, I was playing in the C team at school. I saw in the A side that they didn't have a spinner, so I started bowling spin. And within a few weeks, I got picked up in the A side, and I batted 11. I was the spinner in the side. But by the time I got to matric, because I was fortunate enough to have a coach that backed my batting ability, that gave me a few opportunities up the order. By the time I got to matric, I ended up going to Coke Week as a number 5 batter who bowled spin as well. So that type of development, and had I not had that opportunity and a coach that gave me the opportunity to bat as well, I might not have developed my batting as much as I did down the line. So I think it's quite important that we yes, we all want to win, of course, and you want to play your best team all the time and pick the guys in their best positions. But in the development phases, 13, 15, 17, 19, I think it's important to just experiment a little bit and look at other avenues that could add to your game.
We're always talking about the development of test players, and to ensure that players can sort of execute their skills over 5 days. My question is, how much emphasis do you play on developing players for the T20 game, for the white ball game in general, and how closely do you follow the leagues?
Yeah, so I think it's probably even more relevant in today's games. I think with the amount of money that you can make in white ball cricket around the world, it's almost we almost got to try and motivate the players to work on their technical side of things for the longer version down the line. They're very excited to get into hitting the ball out the ground and working on variations, etc. And we've spent quite a bit of time now in this winter with the guys just working on their base work, making sure that the fundamentals of batting and bowling are taken care of first and foremost, and then getting into the other extra skills that you can develop. I think it's important to have those fundamentals in place, because at the end of the day, playing with a straight bat is still your best option. When faced with a ball bowled at your stumps, no matter whether it's red ball or white ball. So having the fundamentals and the basics in place is quite important. Certainly from my coaching philosophy and in most of the environments that I've worked in.
Now, a lot of this, that the next one that I'm going to ask you is maybe two questions in one. You can answer it in two parts, basically, Richard. It's about women's cricket. Now, in women's cricket, they're not as lucky maybe to have sport played in school. Like a lot of the times we've heard girls come onto this show and women come onto the show speaking about how they joined men's teams, and that's how they got into cricket. So they actually learn their trade actually at provincial level and club level. That's where they actually learn how to play the sport at a high level. Now, we've seen a lot of young talents, obviously Marie Marks, and we've got Nicoline over there as well, at the Northern setup, for example, where they excellent talents and an amazing ability, and they've learned how to come through the ranks and become who they are today and play at such a high level. But I want to know what sort of things you've put in place to help develop the next generation of women cricketers. And also what I want to ask you is, when it comes to women's cricket, what have you learned from the game and working with the ladies that you can maybe take over into the men's game?
Yeah, so I have to admit, I'm still early days of working with the ladies. It's really my initial phases of getting involved in the ladies game. I haven't done a hell of a lot of it in my previous roles, so I'm still sort of sussing it out and working it all out. But I agree with what you're saying, that a lot of the young talent that you come about that you come across are sort of learning their trade at provincial level. That they're training either with men, or they're already at the provincial level. That they're, the club structures, the school structures and stuff, there's still a hell of a lot of work to grow the game in that. Those sort of, to get the numbers, I think, is important, to try and get the participation levels up and the level of interest up within schools to actually get enough teams playing, so that you probably find you only got 4 or 5 girls in a school that want to play, so they must join the boys team in order to play, which is not ideal. You want to get those numbers up. You want to have 40 to 50 girls wanting to play. So the interest levels, and I think it's certainly developing more. And it's a pity, but the development phase has to almost happen up top, from top to bottom, because now the Proteas ladies are doing well, and I think this 100 competition has been great. That they're showing it on TV over here, and people are watching more of it. It can only be good for the women's game to gather interest and to get more participation. So that's quite important. And to your second question, I think something that I can probably take from the girls to the men is just patience. The ladies tend to listen a little bit more and have a lot more patience in developing a skill, as opposed to the men wanting to, why can't I just do this straight away? They want to go through the motion, go through the gears a lot quicker. In terms of hitting over the top, well, okay, I'm just gonna swing my hands harder and I'll hit it over the top. Where with the ladies, you can actually give a little bit of if you do this, then this, then this, then this, and the result will look after itself. They tend to listen a little bit more, which maybe we'll just keep to ourselves as guys on this platform.
Okay, finally, from my side, this is not a Richard Das Neves and Cricket Fanatics collaboration without me asking you about what you think about Manchester United and what you think about the signings we've made, and going forward, if you think that Ollie is the right man for the job.
Look, I'm really happy with the 2 signings we've made. I think we've got two world-class players in probably two positions that we needed. I think if we could get another defensive midfielder, a world-class defensive midfielder, to allow Pogba a little bit more freedom. We saw what he did. We did on the weekend, playing a little bit higher up, which is great. But I think what has been good and what Solskjaer has done quite well is that he's built quite a bit of squad depth now. I think we, in the last couple of years, we haven't always had the ready-made players coming off the bench to perform. They've been decent players, but sort of more squad players. Now I think we've got some world-class talent that may well find itself on the bench in certain games and coming off to play certain, be that impact player in the last 20 minutes or whatever it might be. So I think that's, I'm quietly confident. I think the other teams have spent quite well as well, or have developed their teams quite nicely. So I think it's going to be a challenging season, but I'm almost at the point now where I don't think there can be too many more excuses for Solskjaer, to be honest. I think we've got a group of players now that we shouldn't say we should be competing. I think we should be winning trophies now in the next year or two. So that would be a fairy tale, I think, for Solskjaer as a United legend.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Richard. It was always awesome to talk to you, and we're probably going to catch up with you a lot more during the season to get your insights on everything that's happening over there when you're more settled and things are in the flow of things, because I know there's a lot of planning happening now and prepping for the new season, and obviously a very important season for Northerns and so many other franchises or provinces as well. So guys, thanks a lot for tuning into the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know if you want us to send any questions through to Richard in the future when we do bring him on again. Let us know. We know that this is in collaboration with our monthly magazine, themed in this magazine's issue of South African cricket coaching. So if you want to download the latest issue of the magazine, there's an eye in the top right-hand side of the screen that you can just click on that eye and you can get the latest issue and all the back issues 100% free. So go ahead and do that right now. Also, don't forget to subscribe on this channel. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show. Take care, everybody.